Let me apologize if the sound gets out of sync. We've been having some syncing issues, and I don't really have time right now to fix it because I have to go on do some stuff that doesn't involve politics this weekend. Thank God. But also, if you can, please consider contributing to our Patreon, which you can find the link in the description below. We have been getting, just utterly obliterated by YouTube. We have been shut down from live streaming for 90 days. Didn't break the fair use agreement at all. We had a lawyer confirm this. This is his wheelhouse. This type of thing is his wheelhouse. He's actually preparing a letter to YouTube for us, or on behalf of us, I should say, and the Convo Couch as well, because we've been getting hit and we got locked out. So that basically all the super chats you've been getting, that y'all been helping us out with to supplement a lot of the corruption that we've been seeing, the demonetization that we've been seeing, we're not getting right now. And we don't have live stream to get super chats anymore, at least according to YouTube, for 90 days. So please help us out. Go to our Patreon, www.patreon.com/mikasa. Our revenue has now went from being cut in half to now a third of what we were making 3-4 months ago. And anything helps to keep this show alive. So we greatly appreciate your assistance there. With that being said, I want to go ahead and get started and cover this interview with Tulsi and MSNBC right after the debates.
With evidence. I'm going to give you that opportunity now.
I appreciate it. There's two major areas here. One is this president has chosen to double down and triple down on an alliance with Saudi Arabia, a country that is the #1 propagator of the radical Wahhabi Salafist ideology that fuels terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, a country that both directly and indirectly supports Al-Qaeda in countries like Yemen and Syria. And secondly, this president is doubled down on support for Al-Qaeda and continuing this regime change war in Syria, even threatening to use our own military to respond to anyone who tries to attack Al-Qaeda in the city of Idlib in Syria, where they are in control of and have their stronghold. This is deeply concerning to all of us as Americans, but for me, especially as a soldier who enlisted after the attacks on 9/11 to go after Al-Qaeda, that terrorist group that took thousands of lives on September 11th. This is a huge betrayal to all of us, to all of our service members, to all of those first responders on 9/11, to every family that lost a loved one on that day.
Congresswoman, do you not believe that the same could be said for your meeting with Bashar al-Assad?
I don't know how you could equate that. We're talking about a president that is directly...
That you would be meeting with the leader of Syria, who could feasibly be responsible for the killings of over 500,000 people, who ordered the chemical attacks on children in his own country?
I will never apologize for doing all that I can to prevent more of my brothers and sisters in uniform from being sent into harm's way to fight another regime change war, the likes of which we have seen in Iraq and Libya and Syria, that have taken so many of our service members' lives, that has taken so many of our...
First of all, let me just say, I can't, bruh. Did she just compare a president working side by side with a government, or a regime, I should say, it's not even a government, with a regime that sells weapons to terrorists, is waging an illegal war in Yemen, to meeting with Bashar al-Assad and the opposition? By the way, if you meet with the opposition in Saudi Arabia, you won't find them because they're all beheaded, and we are aware of it, and we still work with them anyway. We consider Saudi Arabia ally. And then it's just weird that she made that weird comparison, because that makes zero sense. But as you know, this has just been, once again, another mainstream media company doing what they do. They heard Kamala say it. They heard her press secretary say it. They heard CNN say it. It's been all over Twitter. Her calling out Saudi Arabia when we just found out Saudi Arabia owns more of Twitter than Jack Dorsey does. And then Twitter smearing her, deleting her, corrupting the algorithm, so it looks like instead of Tulsi trending by herself, that Assad is trending beside her. It's weird. It's not weird. I guess it's expected. It's still a really weird comparison, and it's not being made in bad faith. She's not actually curious if that can be compared, because it shouldn't be compared. It's not even close. Meeting with both of the opposition and the president of Syria to try and bring peace is not what I would call the same as meeting with Saudi Arabia to wage a war in Yemen. I think everybody here would agree with that. But once again, I find it interesting that Nancy Pelosi met with Bashar al-Assad twice. I believe once in 2006, 2007. No, actually, I think it was 2008, 2009, around that time. And then again in 2012, right before we started sending humanitarian aid. Also, nobody ever mentions Dennis. Oh, and she didn't meet with the opposition, by the way. She just met with Bashar al-Assad. And then on top of that, Dennis Kucinich went with Tulsi. Nobody ever talks about that. They make it seem like she went by herself, because if you talk about Dennis Kucinich going, then you have to have a different conversation, because Dennis Kucinich is also vehemently anti-war. Then you have to have a whole bunch of different conversations, like why did Elizabeth Warren endorse Dennis Kucinich's opponent, neoliberal opponent in the primary, over Dennis Kucinich? But that's a different discussion for a different day.
Taxpayer dollars out of the pockets of people in this country, people who are suffering, people in places like Detroit, like Flint, Michigan, communities across this country, what to speak of the suffering that's been caused. So if that means meeting with a dictator, meeting with an adversary in order to accomplish that mission of keeping the American people safe, making sure our troops are not continuing to be sent on these wasteful wars, putting their lives at risk, and making sure we've got the resources for the American people, I'll do what is necessary. And frankly, that's the kind of commander-in-chief we need, that truly has the courage, just as we've seen in our country's past, how, President Kennedy met with Khrushchev, how Roosevelt not only met with Stalin, a murderous dictator who killed millions.
Reagan met with Khrushchev as well, just to let everybody know.
Millions of people, then, excuse me, sorry, let me finish, who met.
Oh, God. She ain't playing with y'all no more. She's not playing with them. Let's continue.
Not only with Stalin, who killed millions of people, but
let me finish, boy. But let her finish.
But actually allied with him. Why? Because it was in the best interest of our country and the American people, and to bring about an end to that war. So no, if it means meeting with dictators, if it means working with people who do things that we find abhorrent.
Or meeting with Bashar al-Assad, but not necessarily meeting with the leader of Saudi Arabia, or supporting or having having a relationship.
Sure. What are you talking about?
Sure, you're mixing two different things up. I'm talking about having a meeting.
I don't think I'm mixing two different things up. I'm just trying to get clarity on it, because there seems to be some inconsistencies in your views of it.
There's no inconsistency whatsoever. Having a meeting for the pursuit of our national security and peace is one thing. I would meet with the leader of Saudi Arabia, with leaders of Iran, with leaders of North Korea in that pursuit of national security, keeping the American people safe. The difference between that and what Donald Trump has done and continues to do is he has cozied up, allied with, and supported Saudi Arabia in their support of al-Qaeda and in support of this genocidal war in Yemen that continues to this day. An illegal war that Congress has not authorized, that's killed thousands of innocent Yemeni people, and that's caused millions more to suffer.
So I hear you.
So you're talking about two very different things here. But you know what?
I hear you on this, Congresswoman. I hear you on this. So I want to go with this for a moment.
She doesn't really hear, but whatever. Let's continue.
So when sitting down with someone like Bashar al-Assad in Syria, do you confront him directly and say, why do you order chemical attacks on your own people? Why do you cause the killings of over 500,000 people in your country?
Because that's how you achieve peace and diplomacy, by the way, in case you didn't know. Let's ignore the fact that there's been no international criminal court case. Let's ignore the fact that the OPCW, the leaks of the OPCW proved that he didn't drop chemical weapons on his people. And the OPCW tried to hide it, but the leaks confirmed it. But even if that wasn't true, everybody knows the best way to achieve peace is to go into whatever country you're going into and talk to the leader and say, hey, stop being a fucking murderer. Hey, you mind being peaceful, by the way? Come on. She knows this, but she's playing stupid. Let's see what Tulsi has to say about this.
Country.
Look, I want to break this down to what we're talking about.
It's really a yes or no answer.
I want to break this down to what we're talking about here today, because you're talking about a meeting that took place 3 years ago?
Well, Congresswoman,
and every time I come back, here on MSNBC, you guys talk to me about these issues. It sounds like these are talking points that Kamala Harris and her campaign are feeding you.
Congresswoman.
Oh no, she's gonna forget. Boy, oh man. Oh no, she didn't. Oh, yes she did. Yes she did. Yes she did, apparently. Oh God. Bruh, Tulsi not playing with y'all no more. Stop messing with that damn she's Samoan, y'all. Do y'all not know y'all? She's tried to be so nice, so cordial, so presidential, so respectful. You know what they've repaid her with? Smears. Smears. More smears. And it's not only coming from the establishment. Let's be clear about that. But even from people who are supposed to be progressive allies. Supposed to be allies of peace. Supposed to be populists. They don't care about everything that Tulsi has tried to do to maintain balance. And that's what it seems like. That's the biggest take. You know, y'all know my saying. Always remember, find your balance. That's the biggest takeaway I've gotten from Tulsi. It's balance. Comprehensive reform. A chance at peace. And this is what people want to talk about. Not, what about the OFF Act? We didn't hear enough about that. What about your meeting with all the other leaders around the world? What about you convincing Trump to pull the CIA out of Syria? What about that? But no, they want to talk about this. A meeting with Bashar al-Assad, but not her meeting with the opposition. They want to talk about the fact, like, she just told you Saudi Arabia is funding terrorists and we're helping them. And the conversation you want to have is about Bashar al-Assad. Okay, I guess that makes perfect sense. And you wonder why she's tired. You wonder why she responds like this. I'm glad she's doing it. The way she responded is emblematic of exactly how Americans feel about this entire system that's constantly trying to thrust. You know, there is no other option, right? There is no other option. God forbid Bashar al-Assad was actually a threat to our national security. We don't talk to him, we go to war. His ally is Russia, mostly because, well, who else is going to stand up to us? His ally is Russia, and Putin made it very clear. And he was actually being very sensible during the conversation. He was like, do you understand how many nuclear weapons there are? Do you understand how little it would take for us to destroy this entire world? Do you understand that we are one step away from a nuclear war? And he's trying to prevent it. He's begging us to get back into our nuclear treaties. Seriously. I watched the video. It was extremely compelling. He was making the argument in an appeal to humanity that you would die to see our politicians make. And it's so sad that we have to get some, like, apparently Putin's a murderous dictator and an authoritarian, and he's saying, bruh, can we just not, we can go back to all of our petty squabbles, but can we not have a nuclear war? And that's the only option if we don't meet with our adversaries. You understand that. And back in the day, that wasn't considered crazy. When FDR did it, it wasn't considered crazy. JFK, Reagan, it wasn't considered crazy. We're already operating from a position of power. So do we need to smear people and attack them before they've ever sat on trial? Or can we just operate from a point of fact and move on from there in the pursuit of peace, not only for ourselves, but for the people that are maybe under Assad's regime or people in the area? You know who really is a murderous authoritarian? Bibi Netanyahu. 50 people, and he justified it, celebrated it. You don't have a problem with politicians meeting with him either, do you? It's interesting. Whatever. Thank you, Tulsi, for speaking how we felt about this situation. Like I said, people, please donate to our Patreon, become a member, help support the show, and always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.